A man walks along the streets on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, heading toward the intersection of Broad Street and Wall Street. Holding his hand and keeping pace is his 9-year-old grandson. Young Daniel Frischberg is about to get a first-hand look at the New York Stock Exchange. He doesn't realize it yet, but his destiny is to be a major player in the world of finance. What he's learned over nearly 50 years, he'll teach you today, and it's all free of charge. There's a billionaire locked inside you. The key to freedom is information, the kind of information you find here on the MoneyMan Report. Now, here's the MoneyMan. Here's Dan Frischberg.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the MoneyMan Report. Thank you so much for being with us. I'm Dan Frischberg. This is the beautiful Alicia, who is even more beautiful today than usual. And we're facing one of the great opportunities we've ever seen in our lives. Every once in a while, life changes. But, you know, there are so many people that could be changing their lives over this who are just not getting it.
What are you talking about?
Well, here's what everybody wants to do. They just can't wait to go to bars and go to restaurants. The world is opening again. And everybody wants to go to restaurants, and they're going to theme parks. And what discount can I get on what airplane so I can go to what places? And they're missing enormous opportunities that they can actually change their lives, because not only is America opening, everybody in the world is opening. And the opportunities of being able to have all these people, millions, billions of people buying the stuff that they need in order to have the lives they want from us. And they're all starting to do it this year at the very same time. So what's happening right now, there's the Americanization of the world. Everybody in the world knows now how we live. In India, almost nobody's got electricity except in the big cities, but they have cell phones and they're watching Netflix and they're seeing how we live, and they want to have it. You're talking about 1 billion people. You know that there are 4 billion people in the world that don't have electricity. Do you know that in Asia, half the food gets thrown away? You understand why? You come from a place that didn't have
electricity.
That's it. They don't have refrigeration, right? Mm-hmm. In Europe, where they actually have refrigerators, but they're not in the habit, 30% of the food in Europe gets thrown away. Can you imagine that? Mm-hmm. Because they just don't have this up-to-date modern stuff. But you know that over the next 5 or 10 years, billions of people, they're going to have electricity, which means they're going to have to build out their grid, and then they're going to wire their houses. They're going to wire their houses. They're going to have refrigerators. They're going to have stoves. They're going to have microwaves. They're going to have computers. And all of this stuff is based on copper. You have to use copper to make everything. You can actually use silver or gold. Those are just as good. They're better, but you can't afford them. The world can afford copper, but there's only so much copper. And to do everything in the world that we want to do, you know that semiconductors are based on using copper. So the computers, we're talking about a semiconductor shortage. We're talking about self-driving cars. We're talking about all these things. It is all about copper. Mm-hmm. There are, when we were in Europe, in China, remember, you could drive hundreds of miles and it was completely dark at night. No electricity whatsoever, only in the big cities. Now they've got a grid running to every little village, and they've got electricity in the village, but the people don't have it in their house. They didn't run the copper. They didn't run the wire from the transformer, from the telephone pole to all the houses. And so imagine how much electricity it's going to take to do that with 1 billion, more than 1.25 billion people who don't have it, who are going to do it in India. And think about the billions of people in Asia and in Africa and in South America. And this is nothing. You know, that the things we want to do in America, to have a self-driving car, to have a hybrid, it takes double the double the copper to build a hybrid compared to a gasoline car. And
So you're saying it's a big opportunity.
it takes-
Has this
Yeah,
been
yeah.
happening, or it just?
Well, it's been happening, but now everything's opening up, right? So there's 50 times more business everywhere about doing all this. And the whole world needs and wants copper. And there's only so much of it. And certain companies have locked up the supply of it and they're mining it. And they're saying that, you know, copper went from $2 a pound, now it's $4.50 a pound. And there's so much more volume. And everybody's in a rush to order it and stockpile it because they're going to need it in order to do all the things they want to do. You can't build windmills without it. And you can't have solar farms without it. You can't have any of this stuff. So everybody's trying to order it and lock it up as much as they can. There's a few good mining companies, and Freeport-McMoRan is one of them. So now here's the thing. People are thinking about going to bars and all the opportunities, but they're not thinking that they can own the company that sells all this stuff, that people buy it from. And you say, well, I don't really have the money to own a lot of a company like Freeport-McMoRan that mines copper and has enormous demand, and they're all sold out, and everybody's trying to order as much as they can. And they say, even if copper went to $10 a pound, the world can't produce more copper for 5, 6, 7 years or more. So there's just going to be higher prices and more demand, and they're selling like crazy. They're making much more money than they were, and the stock is already 4 times what it was a little while ago.
That's coming from the Freeport-McMoRan
Yeah,
CEO.
Yeah,
saying,
sure.
We already maxed out.
Absolutely, that's right. And now the people that are listening and they're thinking about how can I go to a bar and how can I spend money going to Disneyland, they're not buying up all the copper mining that they can. And they say, well, I can't really make a big splash with that. I don't really have the money to put into that. Let's talk about how did Texas become one of the richest places on earth, because this was another opportunity like that. How did some people, a few people, change their lives and their families become rich forever? And what happened to everybody else? So let me tell you about Humble. It's called Humble. It's a little town, little area next to north of Houston, right? It's the airport. It's really considered part of Houston. Now, back in 1887, there was a guy named Jim Slaughter, and he noticed that there were oil bubbles that were coming to the surface in the San Jacinto River. And he thought that that meant that there was oil there. And oil was just getting to be important. They had just invented steam engines and gasoline engines, and that was the big thing. They had changed the world right then. Kind of like what's happening now, changing the world. Now, he couldn't make a deal because he couldn't find anybody he could trust, and he didn't really have the money. And when he was showing it to people, he was always afraid he was going to get ripped off. He never could do anything with it, just a lot of talk. Now, cut to 14 years later, Spindletop, there was a salt dome in Beaumont, in a place called Spindletop, right in Beaumont. And in that salt dome, they found oil. Huge gushers of oil. That was the first big oil find in Texas. Now, they had a salt dome in Humble, just exactly like the one in Beaumont. So suddenly, this thing that this guy was talking about for 15 years, all of a sudden, people are starting to think, my God, there's a salt dome here, just like that. Well, guess what? The land was going for $16 an acre in Humble, and overnight it became $250,000 an acre. Now, nobody there had the money to do anything about it. They couldn't buy the land for $250,000 an acre. But finally, brains and ingenuity and ambition and balls came together in Texas. What a combination. So a guy named Walter Fondren, who was an orphan, and his brother Frank and Ross Sterling, in around 1911, they came. And this time they got what to do. They thought of what to do. They used their brains, like I'm going to show you to do. What they did was they couldn't afford the $250,000 land. But what they did is they went around and they made deals with the people who owned the land to give them a piece of the upstream company that was going to drill and find this oil. And the people they convinced that it was there, those people made deals. And then they went out, and so they bought options. They gave a little money and they gave a piece of the company to the people that had the land. And these were farmers and guys like that. So they managed to lock up that land with these options. They didn't have the money, but they had the brains, and they locked up ownership of all of that land. So they had the rights to drill. And of course, it turned out that dome, that salt dome, was just like Beaumont, and there was a huge deposit of oil, huge gushers there in Humble. That's right. Now, then there's a guy named H.L. Hunt, and he was a Republican political activist from Dallas, but by trading his poker winnings, think about this, he traded his poker winnings for oil rights. And then he ultimately got title to the East Texas oil field. And that was one of the largest oil deposits in the world. And H.L. Hunt became one of the richest guys in the world. And his family is still one of the richest families in the world. In fact, back in 1980, it was the Hunt family that tried to corner the silver market. That's right. Same thing, using the same kind of deal, running around buying options, because the people that have the brains and figure out how to do it know how to do it. So Texas was the place where ingenuity and courage and ambition met opportunity. And that's why we've got the best hospitals here and universities and highways. And Texas is one of the richest places on earth. And that's why it happened that way. So let me stop for a break. We're going to talk more about how you can do it. You think you can't do it. You think you just have to go to bars. You can change your life, and that's what we're going to talk about in the next segment. We got to stop for a break. This is a podcast, but it's also carried on the radio, and the radio stations have to have commercials and news and all that. So we're going to be back right after that.
You've heard it said right here, with enough leverage, you can multiply your investing strength and move mountains. So think about it. How'd you like to own companies like Roku or MasterCard or Raytheon and put down as little as 5 or 10% to unlock the treasure chest of unlimited upside gains? You can, all the while drastically reducing your risk, and you can do it with zero borrowing costs. You just need that leverage and a little know-how. So Dan Frischberg is going to allow you to pick his brain to better understand the concept of leverage. These are special online training sessions called the Pick Dan's Brain Option Service. You can use just a little bit of money to potentially make incredible returns. If you want to make real money, you owe it to yourself to take advantage of this once-in-a-blue-moon opportunity. All you have to do to try it is to go online and register so you can see the results for yourself. The cost is next to nothing, and look what's waiting for you. Each week, Dan will discuss a few detailed trades, quality, actionable trades. You get detailed instructions on buying and selling specific put and call options. The Pick Dan's Brain Option Service shares specific underlying stocks, expiration dates, strike prices, and shows you how much money you could make instantly. It's Dan Frischberg's time-tested, proven money-making discipline that he's used for 50 years to make himself and a lot of other people rich. Lots of other benefits are waiting for you, too, if you just register at themoneyman.com. That's all one word, themoneyman.com, for the Pick Dan's Brain Option Service. This is about teaching you the knowledge and skills. It's your responsibility to apply these skills and knowledge to your specific situation. situation. It's too much to detail here, but all the info's right there at themoneyman.com.
You're tuned in to the MoneyMan Report with your host, TV and radio money man, Dan Frischberg. For more information about everything we're talking about, go to themoneyman.com right now. That's themoneyman.com.
Welcome back. The MoneyMan Report. And everything we do you can find on themoneyman.com. And you can also find a video, which lots of people have paid $299 for. And it tells you all about how to capture and use a small amount of money to make a huge amount of money by using those long-term options to be able to buy assets and get a big piece of assets. So Texas, in the oil, in the turn of the 20th century, Texas was the place where ingenuity and balls met. And those guys went out and got options on the oil lands, and they became the richest people in the world. So I learned about this kind of same technique on the New York Stock Exchange when I was 14 years old. But remember how our life changed. You and I, back in around we got married in 86 and we were
99.
Right now, right around 1990, Harry Dent wrote a book, and we read the book and we realized what was going on, and we took advantage of a big change. What Harry was writing about, and he's still our friend. He just did a podcast with us last week. But Harry realized that baby boomers were coming of age then. Right? That was 1990. Baby boomers were born in the baby boom when the boys came back from winning World War II. They came back and they created the biggest generation ever, right? They had all these babies. And now all the babies were growing up and becoming of age at the same time, right back there in 1990. And Harry realized that they're going to be investing, and they're going to be consuming.
5 houses.
That's right. They're going to have families.
Boats,
they're going to be buying
cars.
houses and cars and boats and all this stuff because they're going to be taking over and making money, and they're going to be doing investing. And so Harry said the S&P 500 is going to skyrocket. And everything is going to skyrocket. You're going to have the biggest boom you've ever seen because now that these baby boomers are the right age, they're the age for investment and consumption. Well, what we did is we said, gee, if everything's going to go up like that, why don't we guide people and help them invest? And we'll set up a company instead of selling them stuff, because I was working at Prudential at that time. My job was selling them stocks. We said, instead of selling it to them, let's help them buy it. Let's manage it for them. And the values are all going to go up and we'll make a lot of money because our fees will go up automatically as they get richer. And sure enough, we did that, and we created an asset management company, which eventually had $1 billion. So half the country right now doesn't even appreciate the freedom of opportunity we have in America. They're sitting and watching other people get wildly rich, and they're complaining about how unfair the country is. And they want to have the government control business and give them out nickels and dimes and keep them poor. And
government controlled schools.
yeah, exactly. And not teaching them how to be part of the economy. Now, look, we're here to free as many people as we can, show them how to change their lives forever.
Build family fortunes forever.
Yeah, just like the Fondrens and the Rockefellers who built refineries. The Rockefellers built refineries, and then they bought out all that humble, and they turned it into Exxon. This is not a mystery. It's how America works. People take options and they turn small amounts of money into huge amounts of money by using ingenuity. So this recovery from COVID is happening here and everywhere at the same time. And I just told you all the different uses of copper, and people are going to need it and they want it. Now you say, but I can't really make a big dent. I can't own enough to make my family rich forever. Let me give you an example. You can get huge equity in copper companies like Freeport-McMoRan, the same way those guys did it in Humble and ended up owning all those oil fields. So let me give you an example. Freeport-McMoRan stock right now is at $40. Now just follow this. It's at $40. So with 10,000 bucks, you say, well, I mean, you can get $10,000 delivering newspapers, but you can own 500 shares. So you own $10,000 worth of the company. You say, well, you know, by the time I'm 90, maybe I'll make a little bit of money on that. Yeah. But look, for $3.65 per share, I can buy long-term options on that same company. I can take that same $10,000 and I end up owning almost 3,000 shares, not 500 shares, right? And look, so I own $110,000 worth of that company. Now the company's sitting in the middle of the biggest boom of our lives, and that company triples just like it did this year, right? And the company goes in now that's worth $120 a share, which is going to happen in my opinion. And it means my $10,000 turns into 300 grand, right? Now I use that to start making money. Now that's how fortunes are made. Now, how smart do you have to be to understand how much copper the world is going to be buying? What you do have to figure out is how are you going to meet opportunity with ingenuity and balls and ambition like the Americans who came before you. So we're right here to show you how to do it. And I want to tell you, I have a video. And it's a very important video. And it tells you how this stuff is done. And lots of people have paid $299 for it. You can go to themoneyman.com right now. You won't have to wait until we do the webinar. It's right there for you. It's a recording. All you do is register for it and watch it immediately. Now, the thing is, what stops people from making their move when I'm telling you it's there? What stops people? Because some people just can't picture it, right? They want a stable image of their world. They see their lives as being centered like this. They live in this neighborhood. They get to do this. They go to work every day. And they feel uncomfortable changing.
They're stuck.
Yeah, just like a squirrel who they inherited this from. The difference between a human being who builds his world and a squirrel, the squirrel wants to stay stable and safe. But is the squirrel really safe? Think about it. Somebody's gonna eat that squirrel right away. There's animals out there all the time. Is the squirrel safer than us by staying in that hole and hiding? Now, we're not about to be eaten by some bigger, larger animal. We don't have to hide and eat nuts. And folks, you don't have to stay the same either. You have to build a new life. And it doesn't take a huge change. It just takes the ingenuity to go and use these smart devices to get a big share of a company that is already doing enormous things that the world wants and needs.
That's a positive effect of COVID. It gave you opportunity, wiped everybody, start all over.
And it's
Fresh.
all building right now. And the people that had stopped, now they're building again. And now they want to build that copper. They want to build all that stuff. And it takes wiring and copper to do every single thing they want to do. And they're going to be buying it from the same few mines. And you can actually take small amount of money and get to buy a big piece of that mine just because you learn the technique, the same technique that those guys used to get a big piece of the Humble oil field and a big piece of the Beaumont oil field. And you can build a new life. Now, Alicia, I think what you're doing is so interesting because what you're doing is you're on a campaign for women.
Helping a lot of women. They always said, I couldn't really respond. I'd like women to help me instead of men. And I said, why? What is that? I couldn't figure that out because they said they respond easily to women. So I'm here helping all women understand how we need to be on board on this copper.
A lot of it is just having copper. It's not only copper either, right? It's
economy.
aluminum, and it's so many things, right? There's lots of things. I'm giving a really good example with
An
copper.
opportunity. The first in your lifetime, if you missed pretty much everything before.
But
then
they've got
here it is.
excuses. They don't have the instinct for it. They don't really understand it. And you know what? Nobody cares what gender you are. And you can buy those options, whether you're a woman or a man. There's no discrimination. And by the way, you can buy them whether you're black or white
Or yellow.
or Jewish or Puerto Rican or where you are. You can just go and buy those
Filipino.
options. That's right, Filipino. And you can buy those options and you can get 20, 30, 40 times your money's worth. And as those companies become worth more and more money, you have the opportunity to make your family rich just because, and it wasn't just brains. Look, there's a lot of people who you can explain it to them and they still don't do anything. They're still just thinking about going to a bar because they're afraid. They can't picture themselves being rich, right?
Just no confidence.
And it's happening, women more than men, right? Because nobody introduced them. Nobody ever told them about that. Is it true or not?
Not really. I mean, it's probably even because you just need to get used to it, get the hang of it, have someone show it to you, or you aggressively go after it.
So once you explain it to them, they have no trouble doing it, just like the men.
Yes.
This is our mission, folks. And go to themoneyman.com. You will see that there is actually a video telling you everything you need to know about how those guys did it and how you can do it too. At themoneyman.com. You don't have to pay. It's not $299 now. It's free to you because this is an emergency. It's time for you to learn how to do this. And we're going to stop for a break and be right back right after this.
Each week in his live video market and economy update offered to his inner circle, Dan Frischberg delivers the in-depth, professional version of his famous Market X-ray report, live and interactive. Now that means you get to ask all the questions you want. And if you can't make the live meeting, you can watch the report on demand. Then email your questions in and Dan will email the answers back or include them in the next live report. Week in and week out, Dan brings you the ideas and specific stock picks from his friends, the people you see on TV and read about in the papers. You'll see what they're buying, how they're hedging, and when they're taking money off the table. At last, you'll get to see how the insiders negotiate the institutional macro bonds that billionaires on Wall Street rely on, the ones almost everyone else never even heard of. When you become an Inner Circle member, Dan will share with you his lifetime of experience and guide you to the best teachers, the best stock pickers, the best option strategists. And you'll be invited to exclusive working vacations in beautiful locations for the Inner Circle only, where you'll rub elbows with some of the most famous investors on Wall Street. So, how do you value the lifetime of skill and experience of a top investor on a mission to share it all with you and help you become one of the few winners? If you've been listening to Dan for a few years, he's likely already made you tons of money, or even more important, saved you from losing a fortune. Now, there are limits to the capacity of the online video sessions, but right now, for a limited time, Dan's offering you the position of charter subscriber, get this, for less than the price of a cup of coffee a day. For all the info or to subscribe, just simply click on themoneyman.com. themoneyman.com.
You're tuned in to the MoneyMan Report with your host, TV and radio money man, Dan Frischberg. For more information about everything we're talking about, go to themoneyman.com right now. That's themoneyman.com.
Welcome back. This is the Money Man Report, and I am the luckiest guy in the world here with the beautiful Alicia.
You really look handsome.
I do. How wonderful. Thank you very much. All right. So, and if you're not watching this on video and you want to see just how great we look, all you have to do is go to themoneyman.com, because there is the video of this podcast up there. And you want to see us, we would love to have you. But we're talking about confidence, right? We're talking about how people actually, you said something when we went off to the break that captured your attention. What was it?
Well,
you said, I wish
that there was when I was talking to one of my client and tried to show her how to acquire these special companies that are really making progress and improving. She said, I wish someone showed me this when I was young. I'll be way ahead. But I said, well, you're taking steps right now. So that's a headline. I wish someone told me this when I was young.
And, that reminds me, I want to tell them about how we started to get the idea that we could teach people, because we were not really into thinking about that. We were just thinking about ourselves, right?
Well, we're thinking about wealthy clients that we have served all these years.
Well, we went to Florida and we were retired and just investing our own money. But then here's what happened. Our son, who just now graduated from college, when he was back there as a sophomore, he called and he had done a very clever thing, right? You want to tell them about what the invention? Do. All right. He was in training to be a baseball player, and he was doing health all the time. And so he's eating a lot of peanut butter, and he couldn't get the peanut butter out of the bottom of the jar. And so he had this idea of a jar that opened at the bottom and the top, screw off both places. And he had this idea, and it sounded so good to him that he went to a 3D printer, and he had them make him a prototype of this jar with a cap on the top and the bottom, where it would screw off both places so he could get the peanut butter at the bottom. And it worked. So he actually took it to the television show. What's the name of the television?
Shark Tank.
And the local New Orleans Shark Tank, he won $1,000 prize. So he called and he said, hey, Dad, I just got money for I've got $1,000. Show me how to day trade. And I said,
all my friends are in, what is that? What's that trading platform? Robinhood, and they're losing money.
Yes, but he was saying, teach me how to day trade. And I said, day trading is for idiots. You don't want to day trade. What you want to do is I'll show you how to really make some money. And with the same idea that those guys had back in the oil fields in 1901. But with the idea of just getting options to drill, using small amount of money to capture huge amounts of resources. So he had just gotten me to sign up for Roku. This is like 3 years ago, 2017. And he wanted because he wanted to come home and be able to watch the football games on television. And, our DirecTV, it was going to be like another $50, $350. But Roku, he got me to buy a Roku and plugged into the back of my television. And now, of course, it's built into the new televisions. But it allowed me to stream these football games, and he could watch any football game he wanted. And I realized that it was such a great idea that I got rid of my DirecTV. I started having all the television I wanted for $40 or $50 a month, not
instead of 300. Yes.
Right. And I realize now everybody, I just got lucky. My young son showed it to me, but everybody is going to be doing this, right? And so at the time when he got that little bit of money, I said, let's buy options on Roku. Exactly the same long term, not for a month guessing it's going to go up and down. Let's buy options that give us the right to own a bunch of Roku company. And as the company becomes worth more and more money, you're going to make a ton of money. And Larry thought that was such a good idea. He did that. He had been driving an Uber, and all of a sudden he's got $20,000, $30,000, $50,000, and it's just growing and growing. And so he called me and he said, I've got some friends and they're losing money trying to be day traders and swing traders and trying to do all these option deals. And why don't you teach them what you taught me? So I taught it to a couple of them, and they said, hey, Larry's father, you could charge money for this. This is amazing. And I said, well, I'll tell you what, you get me students and I'll give you a commission. I'll pay you 20% of the money. An affiliate commission. That's right. And they started to do it, and they started to bring students. And that's how we realized that the world can do this and that the world wants it. And that instead of just focusing on rich people, we can actually change the lives of regular middle-class people.
And it solved the question. I wish someone showed me this when I was your age.
We always did this radio program. We've been doing it for 30 years. And the thing is that the radio program's for everybody, but we couldn't manage money for everybody because you can't charge enough. If a guy's got $100,000, you can't even afford the malpractice insurance. Yeah, you can't do it. So you can't have people that are just regular good people making good money. You got to have rich people. And
you want their father.
Yeah, exactly. So I could do radio programs for them, and it made us interesting to people. We became well known, and we did a lot of TV, and that made the rich people come and find us. Mm-hmm. And so it was great because there aren't really enough rich people to make you famous. Regular people make you famous. Mm-hmm. So it was a very interesting thing. But now we realize that there is something that we can actually do for regular people. And we're changing people's lives. And they're doing that. Last year, there were huge amounts of money made because people understood those digital companies that were changing the world. You understand a company like Twilio. Mm-hmm. If you know what Twilio is, most people haven't even heard of it. And you may not have heard of it even if you're listening to me. But if you log on to your brokerage account or your bank and they say, look, we have to prove that it's you. So what we're going to do is we're going to text you
authentication.
6 numbers, right. Text you 6 numbers, and then you're going to put it in here in this internet program, and then we're going to give you access to your account. Now, if they're doing that multidisciplinary thing where they've got you tied in with your phone and your email and your website and all this stuff, they're probably built on the Twilio platform. But you understand that companies all over the United States are trying to reach companies all over the world, and they are in the cloud, and they're having to communicate.
They're far away.
They're building, that's right. So they're building themselves on that Twilio platform. And then Twilio developed database stuff so that when they are selling this stuff and communicating with people, they can know all about their customers and they can know how to reach them and all these smart things that Twilio are doing. If your company is using that kind of communication disciplinary approach, they are probably built on the Twilio platform. But think about how many people are going to be doing that when the whole world is here living like you do.
So what are you saying? You're saying pay attention to Twilio?
Well, I'm saying last year, when the world was shut down, we made a fortune by investing and buying these same long-term multi-year options on Twilio. We didn't trade in and out. We didn't guess what was going to happen next week. But you made 35 times your money, 3,500% in a year and a half. Why? Because it was growing and they're making more money. And the stock was growing around the world. And it's just at the beginning, folks. This is going to happen for years. And so we just found out that we can actually teach people how to do this, and they can make a difference in their lives.
So they don't have to say, I wish someone told me
I
about
wish
this.
somebody would have shown me this. We are showing it. If you want to know all about how you can learn to do this, everything you need to know to understand how this works is on a very simple video. Lots of people have signed up for it and taken it and paid $299 for it. Right now, it's an emergency. You need to know how to do this now. And so that video is offered on themoneyman.com. It's free, folks.
Slow it down.
All you have to do is register, and you will be able to watch. You don't have to wait for next week when we do the webinar or any of that stuff. You will get the video right there on demand, and you will be able to see it. And folks, it's going to change the way you do things. Now, I can tell you, some people will see that and they will say, well, you know, they're just not comfortable becoming rich. But a lot of people are comfortable becoming rich. And once they do that, and once they learn how to take a small amount of money and lock in big equity in a company that's going to be worth more and more money, just like those guys did back in 1900 by taking options on those oil properties, and it became worth tons of money, and they became the richest people in the world. And Texas is still one of the richest places in the entire globe, all because of what those guys did. You can do this, folks, and we can teach you how to do it. Go to themoneyman.com, and you're listening to The Money Man Report. It's a podcast and it's a radio show. So we're going to stop for a break right now so the radio programs, the radio stations can do their commercials and their news. Stick around.
You've been listening to the sound of your money growing. This has been the Money Man Report with your host, radio and TV money man, Dan Frischberg. Hear it again every weekday morning here on Bradenton's WWPR, broadcasting worldwide. It's Better Living Radio.